Hello. All right. So we're getting close to the end of week one. We've learned quite a bit. Now we are going to kind of turn this into an app. So very, very super basic. It's going to be in the console. We're just going to continue to work in the console. But what we're going to do with this is we're going to uh, get user input. That's kind of separating what we currently have from anything useful is that a user isn't going to want to type in some code and understand a function or a variable or anything like that to use this. So we need to gather some user input. And so what we're going to do is use a JavaScript function called prompt in order to gather input from the browser through a bubble, like a dialog box. So we're going to use prompt, and then we're going to build a basic interactive menu, and then we'll handle um, input coming in, and then we'll use a while loop to while um, you know the user still wants to interact with our functions or our app or program, then we will continually ask them what they want to do. And so before we get started, I just want to say one thing about motivation. Um, it's very easy to get discouraged. You know, this video is, I believe this is our sixth video, so 5 videos in, and there's already part of me that's wanting to shift gears or do something different, or there's thoughts in my head telling me, why are you doing this course? There's other things you could be doing, or is this really the best use of your time? And you're never going to be a successful programmer. You're never going to have a successful YouTube channel. There's all kinds of negative thoughts that are fighting for attention, and so I just want to address that. It's totally normal as far as I can tell. From everything that I can tell, people just have those thoughts, and so you can look more into this, but I think it is your brain trying to protect you from expending energy. Um, and so it's dangerous and to try to acquire new skills. It's potentially, there could be negative outcomes, but the thing is you have to keep reminding yourself is that if you've decided to do this and you want to follow your dreams, then there's another part of your brain that's never going to let this dream go. And you need to think about the pain of not having done something that you clearly wanted to do 5, 10 years down the line and looking back and having the pain of regret. So think about that as well. You've decided to take this course for whatever reason. You've decided that you want to learn more about web development or computer programming, and you've set a goal for yourself. So stay true to that goal and push towards that goal, no matter when you don't want to, or when your mind starts to tell you it's not a good idea. The most important thing that you can do is to be consistent and be consistently writing code. So, and writing code, um, I think from what there's a guy, I think his name is Justin Sung. I'll try to put that in the description and a link to his videos, but he is very helpful and does a lot of stuff around studying. And I believe I heard this from him is that for every hour that you spend consuming, then you need to do something like 3 or 4 hours of actually using that information. So when um, you get through this first week, then try to use what we've learned and create other mini projects in the app browser that can do something similar. Think about other um, simple programs that could collect some information, that could run a function depending on what the person selected, and add things to a list. I'm sure that you can come up with some things, add or remove things from a list. I'm sure you can come up with different themed to-dos even, like we said, list your top favorite games or something like that. Your imagination can come up with a lot of stuff. Just think of something you like and do something geared around that. And as you're doing it, questions are going to come up. How could I do this? How could I do this? What if this? And then follow that and do that for, like we said, a couple out 3 or 4 hours before you really move on to the next course or the next week, because you need to use this information that we're learning. So with that said, for whatever reason, my webcam isn't working. Didn't realize that. But probably for the best, sitting here in what looks to be in the dark. And all right, so just for context, I'm sitting in here doing this right before I'm supposed to go to work. So it's sometimes is hard to stay motivated when you have a family or you have responsibilities outside of work, and then you also have a 9 to 5 job or a full-time job, if it's not 9 to 5, and it can be difficult to find the time, but we all have a time in the day that we spend doing something like watching Netflix or mindlessly surfing social media. So devote steal some of that time and devote some of that towards your goals and your dreams, and you will accomplish them. We're in this together. Let's do it. So what are we going to do today? Well, we said we've got these functions, like we talked about show to do. We just worked on that. Show to do's, and it will show us the thing. So we also have add to do. Now, what if we wanted to, before we get into it, let's say we wanted to combine some of these functions. Like, what if we wanted to be able to call a function that every time we add a to do, then we also show the to-dos. Well, we could use a helper function. We could use uh, a utility function of sorts to just have a new function. Let's create a new function that says function, and it's going to be called handle add to do, and we're going to send it the to do text, right? And because we need that, and then what we'll do is this function is just going to add to do, and we want to pass it the to do text, right? And then we also want it to then show to do's. So then we can simply do handle add to do and say go to work. Well, it's not much of a to do. It's kind of a depressing to do sometimes, but then we've said handle add go to work, and it adds go to work to the end, and then it prints out the to-dos or shows the to-dos. So we can use functions to do things like that, but it is a good idea to have the functions that have a singular purpose, so that you can debug them, or you can run it. You can your program can be more flexible. It can be easier to scale or to improve on. So with that said, we are now going to try to use prompt. We want to prompt the user, and we want to prompt the user. Now, when we do prompt, let's just try this out. I'm going to say, hello, what is your name? We see, well, now we have this dialog box that pops up. I can type in JSON, and it returns JSON. Now, we talked about this in an earlier lesson, that now that is lost forever. I need to store that information. So I need a response variable. Let response equal what is your name? Okay. Now, when I type in what is your name, I have collected that into response, and I can bring that back. So I've stored that information into the variable. So that's important. Now, the one thing that we want to do is um, we want to make sure that this keeps happening over and over. So we want a loop to say keep asking them what they want to do, and then when they give a response, check the response and see if it's one of the things we can do. And then if it is one of the things we can do that thing, and then ask them what they want to do again. So we're kind of creating a little bit of like a menu. So what we can do is we need some way to say like, does the person want to keep going? And for that, we're going to just use a variable called running. And we'll say let running equal true. So we want the program to be running. So then we say while this variable running is true. Now, one thing that is important to know is whenever you put something in parentheses, it's going to evaluate it. And so when it evaluates it, it will run whatever's inside of it. So running is going to evaluate to true. It's going to basically check and see what that is. And so it will either be true or false when it's evaluated. And then so we're evaluating this and running because we set it to be true. It is true. All right. And then what we're going to say is we're going to say let, and we want to take the user input. So let user input, and I'm using something called camel case here. It's where I'm capitalizing the next word in the sentence. So that's a convention. You don't have to do it, but it's a convention for JavaScript. So we're going to say let user input equal prompt. And this is where we're going to ask them what they want to do. We're going to say, to do at, we'll say type add. And so see, because I have these double quotations on the outside, if I was to use double quotations here, it would end that. And see how now it's thinking I'm doing something else. So I have to now use single quotes. So add, so we can add a to do, we can remove a to do, remove a to do, and we want to be able to show to do's, go or quit. And so these are the options. All right, for our user. And so we're saying let the user input be that. And so right now with our simple program, we're kind of assuming that they're going to put one of those words in. Okay. So now we got our next line. And so then we're going to run a series of checks. Now we need to find out which one of these things that they did. So we'll say that if, and we said we're going to use these parentheses to evaluate if this is true or not. We're going to say if the user input triple equals. Now this is a way to also, it's like a way to evaluate these things. It's saying that if it is not only the same, my understanding, not only the same value, but the same type. So if it truly is equal to that, and we're going to say add. So if it's a string that the string is add, then we're going to do something. Right? Now we want to say we need to collect an input from the person. So we need a new to do. Let new to do equal. We're going to use prompt again. So now you want to add a to do. Then we're going to say, what do you need to do? And then they're going to type that. Then we're going to take the new to do, and we have a function, right? So we can add to do. We can add the to do, and we can type in the new to do, or we'll use that new to do. So then we add the new to do, and that's it. So then we can say if this, then do this. And then we have this syntax or this, I guess syntax where we can say else do something. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 things they could do. So we need to chain this else statement. So if this, then this. We could just do a series of 4 ifs, and that would likely work. But what we want to do is we want to only check through this once. So if they do this, then we'll do one of these things. So if the user input and we'll equals that, and then we'll say else if, okay, and then if the action is remove, or what we're calling user input, if user input equals, you can kind of see where we're going. We're going to do the next thing, remove. All right. And if you feel like you can do this, pause this or and then do it on your own and then see if we got something similar. And I wouldn't ever say if you got the right answer because there typically is not, you can, with, there's not necessarily a right answer. It's, does it do the thing that you intended to do or not is good enough at this point, at our stage. So else if, I hope I have everything right. So else if remove, all right, and then we're going to do the same thing. So let the new index equal prompt, and we're going to tell them which item do you want to remove. Okay. Now we need to take that and then -1, right? Because if they type in the first item, we really want to remove the 0 item. All right, so then we're going to say let new index, and then we want to run our remove to do, right? Remove to do. And I'm using tab to autocomplete. You should have that. And then we'll use the new index and we'll remove that. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now, same thing. We're going to say else if the user input triple equals, in this case, we'll say show. Then we want to show to do easy. And then we'll say else if user input equals quit, then we need to set running to false. Running equals false, right? And then that's going to break us out of the while loop. Then finally we'll have else, and then this will run if it doesn't. If this will run if it doesn't fit any of those, and we can just type something silly here, like console.log. I'm sorry, I cannot do that, Dave. That might be a butchering of the quote. Well, put something in there silly like that. Okay, and then we need to, that's our if, and then we can hit enter, and we're going to close this one more time. And now if we've done this correctly, it's going to run our app. And we want to say add. What do we need to do? Eat breakfast. Okay. And seems to be working. So let's hit show. We see now in our console our list. And let's say, okay, things I want to do. Well, now I've eaten breakfast. So let's remove. And which item do we want to remove? 6. And now let's show. And it's showing us everything. Now, I played Path of Exile this morning before I started this project. So let's remove another item. Remove 4 and show. And now we get, we probably should have been clearing the screen each time. So that could be some way that we could improve this. But now, very difficult for us to improve this. We have to rewrite basically that entire function. So we've kind of outgrown the console at this point. And so in our next week, we're going to start with taking out all the code, trying to write all the code that we have into an IDE or an integrated developer environment or development environment. It's one of those. And we're going to put it in there. We're going to try to organize our code, and then we're going to try to get back to this place, in a place where we can kind of now start to make small adjustments to the code and then try it again. And that's going to help us and make it a little more easy for us. So for now, we want to say, let's try out our bleh function. And it says, I'm sorry, I cannot do that, Dave. And then we're going to say quit. Now it's false, and now it doesn't repeat. So we have successfully created a little app inside of our console. And, for now, like I said, try to create something else, some other little app inside of your browser with the tools that you know. Think about what you've learned. And even if there are some things that you don't know, try to make a simple app, collect some input, give some output, have a bit of a menu there, and see if you can grow your knowledge a little bit. There might be things that you don't know, but that you could Google and that you can look up and that you can kind of extend this project a little bit. So remember, we took probably about a little over an hour to go through this bit. And so spend 3 or 4 hours building several mini apps that can do different things with the knowledge that you have now. And then, only then, move on to the next bit. So thanks again. Congratulations on completing the first week. And we'll see you in week 2. Thank you.